They followed a column of soldiers to the office of the vice president. Languedoc had never seen military uniforms like these in the White House before. They were plain and black, with no insignia of any kind, and the faces of the men that wore them lacked expression, as their well-soled combat boots plodded softly along the well-carpeted floors of the White House. Languedoc craned his neck to see if they would encounter any of the Marines or Secret Service officers which usually secured the White House, but he saw only the frightened faces of the vice president's staff, and heard their indignant shouts as they were herded into conference rooms by soldiers wearing the same dark uniforms, whose numbers seemed to be multiplying by the second. "What is the meaning of this?" shrieked the vice president as she stormed down the hallway to meet them. The officer at the head of their small column replied in the blank monotone of soldiery. "We are here, ma'am, on the authority of the President of the United States, to execute a warrant for your arrest on the charge of high crimes and misdemeanors." "What?" exclaimed the vice president, her genuine look of shock replacing her aspect of rage. "Should I handcuff her, sir?" asked the officer as he turned to look at Albert. "I don't think that will be necessary," replied Albert, through the flesh-eating grin that had spread across his face. "Come, Madam Vice President, please allow us to escort you to the Rose Garden." "I don't need a fucking military escort to do a photo op, Albert," snarled the Vice President. "Humor me," pleaded Albert in a wicked falsetto. When they arrived at the Rose Garden, Languedoc was not surprised to find it empty, although he had hoped that the suspicion that had been growing in his mind like a tapeworm in a dog's gut had been misplaced. After they entered the empty courtyard of the Rose Garden, the Vice President sharply turned to confront her escorts. "There's no one here. What the hell is going on?" "On your knees, Madam Vice President," said Albert softly. "What?" exclaimed the Vice President, still obviously perplexed by the turn of events. The soldier standing nearest to the Vice President rammed the butt of his rifle into the small of her back, and the Vice President dropped to all fours, and her knees, bare except for the stockings beneath her skirt, slammed into the ground before she reflexively righted herself into a kneeling pose, the unbearable affront to her dignity granting her more physical tolerance than she would have otherwise had. The image sprang into his mind right before it happened. He had seen the picture in the newspaper more than 50 years before, of a South Vietnamese army officer executing a suspected member of the Viet Cong on the streets of Saigon, the poor bastard's face suspended eternally in the stupid agony of a perfectly timed photograph as the bullet had passed through his head. And then it happened. Languedoc walked quickly to the nearest bathroom and threw up. After he had finished, he opened the door of the bathroom stall to find Albert waiting for him. They stared at each other for a long moment, and Languedoc could see the back of his ugly head in the mirror behind him. "I want you to do the president." "Why?" inquired Languedoc after another long moment. "Because I have a flair for dramatic irony. Because, like Cassius, I want all of our hands to be stained with blood. Because all of this is partly your fucking fault." Another long pause. "How should I do it?" "I don't know," scoffed Albert. "Use your imagination. I'm interested to see what you come up with." Languedoc laid the glass of whiskey on the president's desk. "It's done," said Languedoc gravely. "What is?" asked the president as he seized the glass. "All of it," replied Languedoc absently, as he slowly walked behind the president's chair and began removing his belt. "I've known you for a long time," said the president dryly, after he polished off the whiskey in a single gulp. "Yes, you have," agreed Languedoc. And then, because he lacked Albert's flair for drama, he quickly leaned around the president's chair, looped his belt around his neck, and pulled tight. Languedoc had not been expecting a fight, but the president bucked like a bull attempting to dislodge a rider, his face turning purple with both rage and asphyxiation. Suddenly the president jerked forward, and in one powerful motion rammed his face into the desk, dragging them both forwards. Blood erupted from the president's face, and Languedoc lost his grip on the belt as they both pitched forward, and free from his garrote, the president fell from his chair into a rasping heap on the floor of the Oval Office. Languedoc regained his feet, the chair separating him from the president. And that is when Languedoc saw the boy. He spotted him out of the corner of his eye, his long hair pushed back from his face to reveal eyes that were cloudy with rage. Languedoc spun around. "Who the fuck are you?" screamed Languedoc at the spectral form, the terror of someone having witnessed his deed erasing all need for caution from his mind. "Who the fuck are you?" screamed Languedoc once again and again, until he realized that he was really asking that of himself. The paperweight struck the side of his head with resounding force, and he was unconscious before he hit the ground. Joe then straddled his long-time political advisor and took the belt that was slick with his own blood and wrapped it around the bastard's throat before pulling it tight. Afterwards, the president sat in his chair and put his feet up on a desk that was smeared with blood and disarray. And if he had been listening, he could have just heard the voice of General Johnson as it blared from a television that had been left on in the deserted outer office. "And I pledge, like Cincinnatus before me, that I will now wield the powers of supreme executive authority in order to preserve the sacred rights handed down to us by our forebears. And so, guided by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, we will chart a course to negotiate these troubled times, and by so doing..." The end. Spanish songs in Andalusia. The shooting sites of the days of '39. Oh, please leave the bandana open. Federico Lorca is dead and gone. Bullet holes in the cemetery walls. The black cars of the Guardia Civil. Spanish bombs on the Costa Rica. I'm flying in on a DC-10 tonight. Spanish bombs, yo te quiero y finito. Yo te cuerda, oh mi corazón. Spanish bombs, yo te quiero y finito. Yo te cuerda, oh mi corazón. Spanish Bombs by The Clash.